The NFL draft is behind us, and drafting season is officially off and running. We will be your companions here for the next 2 hours as you bolster yourself ready to draft your rookie drafts this weekend in the FFPC, your best balls, your big gorillas, whatever you're doing. We're here to help. Welcome into FFPC Insider Access for Thursday, April 30th, 2026. My name is Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman. That's EricBalkman. For those of you watching, it's in the lower left-hand part of your screen right now. I want to let everybody know that, by the way, you may know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship as well. I want to let everybody know that the FFPC Best Ball Tournament is off and running. $125 is the entry. You can win $400,000. That's $100,000 more to the grand prize winner than we had last year. Last year's $300K. This year, if you win it, $400K. The Superflex Best Ball Tournament is also back. Just $35 to enter that, but you're still eligible for a $100,000 grand prize. Of course, we got big gorillas and baby gorillas going off as well. $350 entry, $1 million grand prize in the big gorilla, the 7 bananas and the early rampage tournament off and running there. $25,000 grand prize in the early rampage tournament. If you are entering the big gorilla, you are automatically right now entered into that early rampage tournament. So it's 2 tournaments for the price of 1. The baby gorilla is the perfect step into managed league high stakes fantasy football. $125 to enter that and $100,000 grand prize. Don't forget Dynasty and Empire Dynasty startups beginning at $100, going up to $5,000. We got FFPC chop leagues going on, guillotine style leagues starting at $35. You can win cash in that or use it for entries into the big gorilla or the main event. Don't forget, all of these leagues have live and slow drafts going on right now, and you can use the FFPC app to register, manage leagues, draft from them, place bids, whatever you want. That's available for both Apple and Android users. myffpc.com is where to go. That's myffpc.com. I want to bring in my co-host for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as a jack of all trades. He basically rules the news desk over at Player Profiler, and you can hear him hosting multiple shows for the Player Profiler Roto Underworld Podcast Network. You can connect with him on X at Fantasy Picasso. Please welcome aboard onto the show tonight, Mr. Jonny Tooma. Jonny, thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight. What a treat. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for hopping aboard.
Dude, thanks for having me. You are a true professional. Thanks for all the prep you put into these shows. And yeah, the beard is nuts, man. Like the headshot on Twitter says one thing, but then I was watching the shows and I'm like, man, that thing is amazing.
Yeah, it's taken a few years, but we're here now. I want to kick things off. I want to sort of give the viewers an idea of what you're doing at Player Profiler. I mentioned the news desk, and obviously, I just listened to you and Ian Hartitz crush a 3-round Superflex tight end premium rookie mock draft in the Dynasty Deep Dive podcast. But I mean, I've heard you on the deep end as well. What are all the shows that you're doing for Player Profiler right now?
Yeah. Thanks for having me tonight, Eric. Do a lot of different things there with Player Profiler. One of my favorite things is, went to the Super Bowl and Combine as a media member there and did some player interviews. And that's kind of what the deep end was. That spun off doing some player interviews with prospects who were trying to get a shot in the league. So Cam Dorner, he was signed by the Patriots as an undrafted free agent with some really good advanced underlying metrics. Good kid, got to spend some time with him. So that was the deep end. The deep Dynasty Deep Dive is just a little more Dynasty focused show. Honored to be able to get some really good guests like Ian Hartitz. It's got Fusu Vu. I mean, that's a deep cut, but some people out here know who Fusu Vu is. He is a fun guy. So I get all these different wild animals on the show, and we talk about the things that make those guys so fun, and through Dynasty through their lenses. And so that's a lot of fun for me. And then I help run social media for Player Profiler as well. So last thing I'll say, best thing about the fantasy football industry is some of these like alliances that get formed with like FFPC and Player Profiler. And so, just happy to do this stuff. And this is the best part, is working with people like you guys,
Yeah, it's awesome, and we're fortunate to have you guys as a partner as well. You just iron sharpening iron, right? And mutually beneficial. So it's been great, and it will continue to be great, obviously, going forward here. Let's get into it, Jonny, because this is one of my favorite episodes to do all season. It's the first insider access after the NFL draft, so we are breaking down. I feel like as content, not that I mean, I guess technically I'm a content creator, but that's not really what I do. I would say that the fight is the last month and a half is we're doing all these like landing spot scenarios, right? And we're like, well, what if he goes here? And what if he goes here? And what if, and like ultimately I'm just kind of like getting NFL draft blue balls. I'm like, can we get the draft going already?
Yeah.
I don't want to like keep talking about like, is Love going to be a Titan and a Commander or a Carton? You know what I mean? Like it's so finally we get these guys in their correct, well, not correct, but I mean that we do know where they're going to be playing this year. And I'll kick things off here with Carnell Tate. By the way, Jonny and I are going to go through the pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends in the first segment. We'll get through the running backs and quarterbacks in the second segment. And then we will do an FFPC single quarterback, obviously tight end premium 2-round rookie mock draft with all those rookie drafts scheduled to start early Saturday morning with the FFPC. We will go through, we'll try to help you out and give you some ideas of what you should be doing with whatever pick you have in that tonight, or this weekend, I should say. So tonight, Carnell Tate is going to kick off the show. Interesting player, and quite frankly, I know how you feel about some of these guys, but not all of them. Carnell Tate's one that I don't know. Never hit 1,000 yards while he was at Ohio State. Just turned 21. So that's good. 51 catches, 875 yards, and 9 touchdowns last year. Obviously, on the same team as Jeremiah Smith, might make it a little bit difficult to be the number one target on your team when you're playing with probably the 101 in dynasty rookie drafts next year. This is a player that I think is, I don't know. I've always viewed Jonny as, I think he's pretty good at a lot of things. I don't think he's necessarily elite at anything. Now, that doesn't mean he won't be elite at the next level, but I just view him as a pretty polished guy with still room to grow. I think he's got a high floor. I don't know how high his ceiling is. And I was a Jordan Tyson guy through and through. I think I will probably, and I have to make this decision in at least one of my dynasty leagues at the 102, in single quarterback. I will probably end up taking Tate over Tyson there, although I haven't made up my mind because I was team Tyson.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
This whole process. And it's not like Tyson landed in a bad spot, but Carnell Tate, dude, at the 4th overall pick, I have to sort of reevaluate because I had those guys so close. I have to sort of reevaluate what I think of Carnell Tate now. And I think I've become more bullish based on this landing spot. How do you feel about Tate right now, knowing that he is going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward?
Yeah, you said a lot of good stuff, man. I mean, a lot of it, I feel the exact same way. I just couple kind of like cleanup items. Again, this still is a blue chip prospect coming out of high school, right? 5-star recruit, junior declare. So he has a lot of what we look for with those high-end fantasy producers. And the only thing I'd push back on what you said about like he's not elite at any one thing. He's pretty elite at contested catches and balls in the air, right? Like that is the one trait that he has that I do think when you dig into the data, he is just, it's a solid and it's a good trait to have, right? You can be successful there. And it's not like he's a bad route runner. You've got the nuts draft capital at 104. You've got an amazing landing spot where he's going to be tied to a young quarterback and, hopefully they gel together, but I think you just have to be all in. I think he's earned the 102 even in super flex leagues at this point. Anytime you get top 5 draft capital from a wide receiver, it's just hard to ignore. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Carnell Tate. And to your point, we had these guys kind of all in a tier. We were taking this all into account, and this is kind of how the chips fell. And he's such a solid player. He has been. Nothing's changed about that, right? And so I really like Jordan Tyson. I really like Makai Lemon. I think we'll get into those guys, but they're still all great players. Nothing changed. The draft capital is interesting, right? And it does change. That changes things.
I will say too, I think he has, I think Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points was saying this, that, and I happen to agree, that Tate was probably the best route runner in the draft as well. Now, I don't think I would give him elite status on that, but it's not far off. Like he is a very good route runner as well. And I think that translates to a smoother transition from
Yeah.
college to the pros as well. So there is, I'm starting to like Carnell Tate more and more. Now, it's not at the expense of Jordan Tyson, who went with the 8th overall pick in the draft to the New Orleans Saints. This guy's got good size, high risk, high reward. My former co-host at the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, FFPC co-founder Dave the Dizzle Gerzak, was saying last night that he thinks he understands why Tyson gets hurt so much is because of all this unnecessary body movement when he's making catches, where he's jumping when he doesn't have to, twisting his body when he doesn't have to. Now, I don't know about all that. I have not watched enough film of Tyson to know if he's doing that all that much. But for me, I mean, not that I want to compare how we felt about this guy prior to the 2025 season, but a lot of people had him as the number 1 wide receiver a year ago. Like after the 2025 draft, a lot of people looking forward said Tyson would be the number 1 wide receiver. And I've said this over and over again on a lot of my shows, not really concerned about the torn ACL and PCL and LCL because it happened, 4 years ago now or whatever. I wasn't really concerned with the collarbone. I mean, that's kind of a freak thing. Now, I understand there is an argument out there that the ACL may have contributed to these hamstring problems. And the hamstring, I think, is a legit concern. But when I look at the upside with what Tyson can do, and now he's in an offense that seemingly is looking to outscore people this year, with Shook, who really showed out last year, and Olave, and they add Oscar Delp, and they already had Juwan Johnson. Certainly Tyson is in the conversation there. They draft Berrien Brown and Bryce Lance as well in the draft too. So they're adding all these pass catchers. Now, maybe you could make the argument that maybe these are the guys that are going to replace Chris Olave when they eventually let him go or trade him or whatever. I don't know. But it seems like right now, this New Orleans Saints, especially with Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara potentially back there, maybe this is an offense we want to be investing in. And part of the reason is Jordan Tyson, like the landing spot here for New Orleans. I know he is not going to probably get, at least initially, the number 1 wide receiver target share that maybe Carnell Tate is going to be claiming in Tennessee, Johnny. But I still think there's a lot of upside here for Tyson. Very excited about where he landed.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite guy to watch, hands down, out of all the prospects, like he's the guy who I was always the most excited about. I think to your point, like you got Chris Olave in there, which is a little bit of a detractor in the beginning. I like how you're kind of positioning it like they might not keep him long term, but I kind of see him hanging around. It just seems like more and more receivers are getting the deals. They're willing to pay that market price, those teams, to keep a guy like Chris Olave. So I think you do have to account for that he could hang around. Again, I do love the Kellen Moore offense. The one concern I do have is just I think the best comparison I can give for him is Odell Beckham Jr. I think he has that upside when he's healthy, but I think he could have that sort of career that's also, you'd still draft Beckham at the 102 tomorrow, right? If you knew you could get that, but you'd also be losing a guy by the time he was 30 in Dynasty, right? So you're taking the pick in that scenario. But the fear is that he's so injury prone that he never actually he had Odell Beckham's potential, but he didn't get to realize it. And shout out my guy Fusuvu, who I was just talking about. Like his big knock on Jordan Tyson is the way that he moves, and that his knees are too in and his feet are out. And he's called out, in respect to him for this. He called out Travis Hunter, was against him, called out. He loves Malik Neighbors, loves the talent and the film, but he said he does this and it makes them more injury prone. Now that we can't predict injuries, none of that, but both of those guys end up suffering ACL injuries in their first year in the league. And there is a lot of there's a growing cult of people who believe that these movement patterns can be predictive of injury. And you can tell they're starting to brainwash me a little bit. So I just think it's worth everybody taking a look at, and they decide if they take it serious or not. That's the best advice I can give on that.
I wonder if that's something. I mean, can you correct the way a guy runs at this level? You can?
Yeah, there are like trainers who are in on this. Now, a big guy who's vouches for it is Jamar Chase. He says, like, he's called out a specific trainer who's pointed out all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'll recode these guys is what they call it. But it's, again, if they're not doing it, and they're not getting better at it, then that is what it is, you know?
That's interesting. Like, I know like you can kind of change throwing motions for quarterbacks and you get to the next level.
Right.
I had not thought about changing the way, running gait or anything like that. That is interesting to think about too. I think about, Christian Watson and Eric Stokes. Stokes, the current Raider, former Packer, Christian Watson, the current Packer, who went from Green Bay down to Madison, Wisconsin, to be looked at the University of Wisconsin to try to figure out these soft tissue injuries. And they found out that Watson, this was not like something that was correctable as far as movement goes, but they found out that Watson's, one of his hamstrings
was bigger than the other. Right?
It was stronger, like 20% stronger than the other. And so they kind of fixed that. And lo and behold, since then, Watson has not missed any games because of soft tissue injuries. Did tear an ACL. But there is, it is good to see that this kind of stuff, especially for us as fantasy owners, especially dynasty owners, Johnny, that we can see medical science kind of correcting all these little nagging injury things, or at least taking a step forward and trying to correct these nagging injury things that have held back players from reaching their full potential. And Tyson maybe could be a poster child for this.
Yeah. Dude, there's a little science to this stuff, and we're having fun tonight. I love that that this is a safe space for me to share my tinfoil hat takes. So
yes, we encourage that behavior, Johnny. We encourage that type of behavior. Makai Lemon was, I believe, the first rounder to sign his contract, which he did this afternoon with the Eagles. He was the 20th overall pick. $20.8 million fully guaranteed and $11.5 million signing bonus. Last year, he won the Biletnikoff Award over Jeremiah Smith, for what it's worth. 79 catches, 1,100 yards, and 11 touchdowns. The Eagles believe he can play inside, he can play outside, and it certainly seems that he will be handling many of the targets that A.J. Brown ostensibly will not be handling for the Eagles this year, when and if and when he gets traded to the New England Patriots after June 1st. So what's interesting, there's a lot to unpack with Lemon here. Let's go with a macro level here right away. We already talked about Tate. We talked about Tyson. Now we're talking about Lemon. Johnny, how did you have these guys ranked pre-draft, these top three receivers, and how did that change, if at all, post-draft between Tate, Tyson, and Lemon?
Yeah, I mean, for me, he was my wide receiver one pre-draft. And, I mentioned taking Tate at the 102. Like, if I have that spot, I may be trying to get out of it to kind of tear down and to get to like the 104. Gun to my head, no one's willing to trade back. I probably might take Makai Lemon at the 102. Like, I'm kind of a crazy person about this because, like, I didn't hate the landing spot. I think he was the best prospect in this draft. He's just extremely great. Like, I just know he's going to be a productive player at the NFL level. There's just an undeniable feeling I have about it from all the research I've done. And so, again, I think some of the stuff was also overblown, like this media stuff and the way he was handling himself at the combine. Like, I made it a point, as you can tell, I really like this guy, to be, listening to his question or his answers, kind of just seeing how he was moving after the interview. I did not stalk him, but I ran into him at Chick-fil-A and ate an entire meal next to him. My friend took a picture with him. So, like, I got a feel for this guy and I really liked him. And I felt like he had a lot of dog in him. And I think that's another thing I like. I love the landing spot with the Eagles because it's like sneaky good. Mm-hmm. It's a team that's built to succeed. A.J. Brown's on the way out. And it just reminds me of like how I felt about JSN coming out. Was like, oh, we hate this landing spot with the Seahawks. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, like 2 years later, none of those players exist anymore, right? I do see Devontae Smith hanging around for a long time, but like, I just really feel like Makai Lemon is going to be a very big part of the Eagles offense for the next 10 years and going to be a really good player. And I feel that way about the other offensive player they drafted in the second round. And I'm sure we're going to get to him, but I just think that they nailed this draft because they got two of my very favorite offensive weapons. Kudos to the Eagles. They did it again. And I think that this guy's going to be an absolute stud.
Yeah. Hashtag Howie does it again. And by the way, vintage Howie Roseman calling Makai Lemon while he was on the phone with the Steelers, thinking he was going to be a Steeler. And I was so ticked off about that too, Johnny, because I had a bet in on Steelers' first position to be chosen was wide receiver.
Oh.
they were obviously going to take Lemon, which was great. And then Roseman screws me over. And then they take, I want to say the offensive tackle, was he from Arizona State?
Yeah.
Is that what his name is? So they end up taking him. And I'm like, well, this is just setting me up for disaster for the rest of this draft, which is just, and I had the Jets taking, how did I have the Jets take? Somehow I had it. I can't remember. I had him taking Arvell Reese at the 2.
Yeah, of course you did.
I felt good about. I didn't make the bet until Bailey sort of like made the odds way in his favor. And then I took Reese, it's like plus, I don't know, 300, 400 or something. This is like 4 weeks ago or whatever, 3 weeks ago. And I felt really good about it, especially when the odds kind of evened up. And then they take Bailey. So it's just a frustrating.
Dude, that's salt on the wound with the Steelers, though, because then they still go wide receiver in round 2.
Yeah, but listen, that's why it's gambling, right? So we had some fun with it. Getting back to Lemon, I have been telling people, and I'm not the only one. It's not like I invented this. AJ Brown probably going outside of Philadelphia to play his football this year. I said Devonta Smith should be like a player you should be drafting whenever you can right now, because his floor is basically what his ADP is at, but his ceiling could be a lot higher if Brown gets moved. Now I hear from people who I respect saying that we could be looking at more of a 1A, 1B scenario with Smith and Lemon as soon as this year. Yeah. I know you're high on Lemon. Are you that high on Lemon where he could be a quasi 1 right away for the Eagles?
I think, to answer your question, basically, because I do think when you get in Stowers in that offense, like nobody understands, like this offense is going to look completely retooled with these 2 weapons. Like they've got a good O-line. They've got young juice now injected into it. They have a good defense. And so I think between the run game, Barkley and Stowers, Goddard and Lemon, Smith becomes kind of a wash, to your point, because like if they wouldn't have went offense in round 1 and 2, man, he was my number 1 target at his current ADP. But yeah, these guys are going to be involved in the offense. And I think it's going to have, I think Devontae Smith is more of a Robin than he is a Batman. That's what I'll say about that.
And I get it. And it could be a situation. You think about everything else Philadelphia did. You mentioned Stowers, the Wicks trade with Green Bay, bringing him in, the Hollywood Brown. Yeah. The Hollywood Brown side, exactly. So I wonder if this might not be as they still have Goddard, at least for this season. I wonder if this might not be as concentrated of a passing game where we see flashes all over the place. And Sean Mannion, who's the new offensive coordinator there, came from Green Bay, and we know Matt LaFleur called the plays there. But think about how run-heavy that offense was in Green Bay, and I think you could make the case that Josh Jacobs ain't Saquon Barkley, and you could make the case that the Eagles' offensive line is better than Green Bay's. Maybe we see more of a rushing attack this year. I just think the Eagles thing is going to be fascinating to watch this season because there are so many, from the OC to Makai Lemon to the addition of Wicks and Brown and Stowers. I don't know what to think at this point right now. Maybe we'll get some more answers coming up later on, in the training camp and what have you. But it's the wild, wild west in Philly. And certainly, you could sell me on pretty much anything happening with the Eagles offense right now. And I wouldn't disagree with you. Yeah. Let's go to Cleveland. And this was another frustrating thing. This was great for Casey Concepcion. I said this last night on an X Space I was doing. I said it was great for about 24 hours for Concepcion, where he gets drafted as the 24th pick to the Browns. He says he wants to build a connection with Shadur Sanders, which could be problematic because according to Mary Kay Cabot, who covers the Browns for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, apparently Deshaun Watson is the leader in the clubhouse for the Browns starting quarterback gig. To which I say, is it 2020 already? What are we doing here? Now that no dig on Watson, maybe he is the best solution here, but the last time we saw him, he was pretty awful. I wonder how much you think quarterback specifically matters in Cleveland, be it Sanders, be it Watson, be it Taylon Green or Dylan Gabriel or whoever. I don't know. How much does that matter to Casey Concepcion's success, given that Cleveland, quite frankly, could have a brand new quarterback like Arch Manning or Dante Moore or somebody like that next year, how much does who the quarterback is for Cleveland this year, Johnny, affect the way that Concepcion is able to potentially reach his ceiling?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just kind of tackle this whole elephant. I'm gonna try and swallow it all, if that's okay. Like,
all the elephant. Here we go.
yeah, like I think that they'll probably move one of those guys. They, not keep 4 quarterbacks on that roster. I would imagine they're trying to shop Shador and Dylan Gabriel. So we'll just see what happens there. As it stands, I think it's probably Watson, and I do think you might see some Taylor Green. So like he's an interesting late dart and dynasty drafts and in fast draft origins where you can get some like year 1 production out of him if he sees the field, right? But KC, the thing I like about him is he's landing in like a Todd Monken system, and I think that's what kind of insulates him. That he's been used as a running back in college. I think you can think about how they use Zay Flowers a bit in Baltimore, and you start to get kind of excited about what that means, and that no matter who's back there throwing the ball, that the offense is designed around getting the ball to your playmakers and getting them in space. And I think KC is going to be that guy, especially as Judkins is rebounding from a serious injury. And then just to kind of touch on to Denzel Boston, kind of like killing him. I don't think that happened as much when I interviewed Boston at the Combine. He said it like, I'm a perimeter guy, and perimeter guys are great in real life, real football. Like sometimes those guys who have 50 catches and 500 yards, but 8 or 10 touchdowns, something like that, like great for real life, great for the team. And he maybe took a dent out of KC Concepcion a little bit, but he's not. So I don't think he's going to be like a target hog like that. I think they're going to use him a bit more as like the sacrificial X, and that KC Concepcion is going to be the big beneficiary of being kind of like the engine of this Todd Monken offense. So that's my take. He is a certified go-to mover by Fusuvu. There's a bad way to run and there's a good way to run. And Fusuvu really likes KC Concepcion. And I saw it too. I'm starting to learn what this movement's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. And like, if you watch some of those videos that KC Concepcion has posted of him running, it's like poetry, and it all starts to click for you. You're like, that guy he runs cool.
Yeah, exactly. So getting back to this is interesting that you're the impact that you're saying is about Boston potentially maybe not having on Concepcion. Now I'm starting to view this, not that I didn't already, or at least this didn't cross my mind, but Concepcion is sort of like the alpha in this offense. He can do it all. He can win short. He can win long. He can be a gadget guy too if you need him to do that. Line up in the backfield or whatever. Whereas Boston is this guy that can play on the outside, that can make the contested catch. You can go to either one of those guys on third down. And oh, by the way, you still have Harold Fannin. So maybe this is just the making of those 3 guys. Maybe I need to stop thinking about this, Johnny, as these guys are all competing for targets, and start thinking about it in the sense of these guys all complement each other very well with their style of play. And this is sort of like an everybody wins as long as the quarterback is competent.
Yeah, you said it well, man. And I think 20 to 30% target share is not out of the range of expectations, or like, obviously not 30%, but like 18, 25% target share for KC Concepcion. And it's just short, easy stuff, getting the ball in his hands. Like, I'm not too scared off of Denzel Boston. I really think he's a good player. But again, guys like him, guys like Malachi Fields, who win on the outside, admit that they win on the outside, and that's where they know teams want to use them. Like, they're less of a killer to me in fantasy than, drafting another guy who could potentially come in there and carve out a role like a Puka Nacua, right? Who's just commanding that entire offense all of a sudden. So.
Where will Denzel Boston go in our rookie mock draft? Stay tuned for that in the second hour, third segment. You'll be interested to see. I don't even know where he's going to go, but I'm definitely my opinions are being tweaked as we speak. As I speak to Jonny Tooma right now, because I'm thinking about things in my mind, because it helps to talk about this, right? It helps to kind of one of the things, and Johnny, I don't know how you feel about this, but one of the things when I started playing fantasy football, this is all the way back in the mid 90s when I started, shout out Jonah Hill. The thing with me is it took me till darn near 2010 to start listening to people I disagreed with. Like, I was in my own echo chamber this whole time. I had a way of thinking about a player, and if you disagreed with me, I would listen, I'd be respectful, but I'd say that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, once I opened my mind and understood that I wasn't right about everything, that I could be wrong about stuff, and that other people could be right when they disagreed with me, it's made me a better fantasy player. So that's why I always appreciate the back and forth, the give and takes, trying to figure out, okay, well, I didn't consider this. Maybe I should consider that. And that goes into, for all of us becoming better fantasy football players. Okay, off my soapbox here. Let's talk about Omar Cooper Jr., who went to the New York Jets, not in the middle of the first round, like many had projected. The Jets trade back into the first round for their third first-round pick to get Omar Cooper. He was number 30 overall, 6 foot, 200 pounds, redshirted as a freshman, and then was sort of a backup in as a sophomore. But if you go back to 2 years ago, not 2025, 2024, led the Big Ten in yards per catch, pretty much always played on the outside. And last year, we see him in the slot more for the national champion, undefeated Indiana Hoosiers, 937 yards, 69 catches, and 13 touchdowns. This is all playing next to Elijah Surratt, who also many people thought would be a day 2 pick. He ended up being a day 3 pick, but certainly pretty impressive that Cooper was able to do this with Surratt on this same team. Kind of a weird guy for Dynasty, given his landing spot, that he's going to be contending for targets with Kenyon Sadiq and Garrett Wilson. I don't know if Cooper ever surpasses Garrett Wilson as the number 1 wide receiver on the team. Maybe he doesn't have to. But as I look at this Jets situation, a situation that could be very different next year if they don't have Geno Smith quarterbacking, and they have, I don't know, Lenora Sellers or Trinidad Chambliss, or, one of these early round guys, or, these first round guys.
Yeah.
I wonder what it would look like then. I get the feeling when you compare Fannin, Boston, Concepcion to Wilson, Cooper, Sadiq, the Browns are it just seems to be those types of styles of play gel with each other a little bit better than what the Jets have put together here in New York. Throw in Breece Hall in there too, who is also a talented pass catcher. There's a reason that Omar Cooper is not going among the top 5 picks, top 6 picks in rookie drafts. But maybe that's a mistake. Give us your take on Omar Cooper Jr., the New York Jet, Johnny.
Yeah, he gets a ding, right? With the landing spot. There's just no way around it, man. Like I try and, I was excited about the Makai Lemon spot. I didn't see that as a ding, right? But like going to a franchise that's just not a winning franchise isn't a good, it's not a recipe for success, right? And, Geno Smith's quarterback in that team, I loved Geno when he was playing with the Seahawks and playing some of his best football, but I don't think he was that guy last year. I don't think he's going to be that guy in New York. And I don't think Frank Reich's going to inspire confidence as the OC. I could see this being like a midseason firing. So it's just one of those scenarios where no matter how you slice it, you get excited about the Browns a little bit because Todd Monken was able to make that Ravens offense be one of the top in the league. Like, I'm not inspired by what Aaron Glenn did coaching the team last year. I'm not inspired by what Frank Reich has done as a coach in his past few years in the league. And so I say all that because this is a guy who Omar Cooper, I probably would have taken closer to like a 106 in a super flex ahead of Concepcion, just for like to be specific. And I probably bump him behind Concepcion now, just because, yeah, they both franchises are terrible. You can make arguments for both, but like, I see a little bit of an end in sight for the Browns potentially. I just don't see that for the Jets. I see them picking first overall next in 2027. And so it's just rough, man. It's really rough.
I don't know, like, what his role is going to be, in New York too. Like Garrett Wilson, I think and like people dog Wilson after last year, but like, and I know it was a small sample size, but Johnny, he was on pace for basically what he had done his first 3 seasons in the league or whatever it was. Like he was on pace for it, even though we think about last year being awful for Wilson. And I wonder, when you compare what Cooper is going to do on this team, does he eat into Wilson? I still think like despite the Jets drafting this guy in the first round, I still think Wilson takes precedence over him, and obviously precedence, but like this should not affect Wilson at all. Like, if anything, it should help him out. And then when you throw Sadiq and Breece Hall in, I'm just wondering how Cooper gets enough stats on this team, not only in 2026, but in 2027 and 2020. I guess to me, going where he went, a little bit of a limited upside here now for him.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't argue any of what you're saying. In Dynasty, I think you just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and give up on them because of the landing spot, right? Players get traded, coaches get fired, other, players besides Omar Cooper could get traded, right? Like, and there are people who you just kind of start to fade at their current price and the role you see in the offense. And because not everybody's going to eat, to your point, not every there's very few teams that are going to give you 3 players with 100+ targets. It happens very infrequently, but that would be the situation you'd look for when you're projecting comfortably that 3 out of these 4 guys are going to hit. It's just not the case in most offenses. 2 out of those 4 names you just mentioned aren't going to command that many targets, and I think one of them, the easy pick for me, is Kenyon Sadiq. And so I'm less worried about Sadiq. I think they work Cooper kind of in the slot and on some underneath stuff, and hopefully kind of rotate him interchangeably in that role somewhat with Garrett Wilson, because I think he can do all that stuff too. So I still like Wilson as like the bona fide wide receiver 1. Cooper is kind of like what ends up being the gadget guy, because this offense just isn't taking the top. It's just not an explosive. I don't see it being an explosive offense. And then, Sadiq doing a lot of blocking and running a lot of routes, and Breece Hall probably underperforming relative to what his ADP is, again, just because he has done that for, I think, almost every year we've drafted him.
Yeah, it's basically a rite of passage, right? The Niners overdrafting a running back in the 3rd round, and Breece Hall underperforming his ADP. Here. Let's put a pin in the Sadiq discussion. I definitely want to pick your brain more on him, but I want to stick with wide receivers here. And quite frankly, as exciting as it was, those top 3 that we talked about, Concepcion, I think for a lot of people was like number 4. You throw in Boston here, who we've talked about a little bit, Cooper. One of the guys that, to me, I guess doesn't, like, I have not done enough homework on this guy. Antonio Williams goes to the Washington Commanders at number 71 overall. Not the biggest guy in the world, certainly not the smallest guy either. 6 foot, roughly 190, whatever. Started all 4 years with the Clemson Tigers and was in the slot. He was a go-to guy for Cade Klubnik there. First team and 3rd team all ACC honors in the last 2 seasons. Did not play in 2 games this past year because of hamstring injury. I don't think that that's a big concern for me going forward. What's probably most interesting to me about Williams is what the Commanders didn't do at some of the other positions, right? Didn't really attack wide receiver in free agency or the draft. Didn't attack running back at all in the draft, right? They added Chiga Conquo, but all of a sudden, this Jaden Daniels revenge tour, if it is going to happen, it's going to feature a lot of McLaurin. And then, Johnny, doesn't it have to feature a lot of Antonio Williams this year as well? I mean, certainly there's Diggs and Keenan Allen, and I don't think they're going to bring back Deebo Samuel, but Juwan Jennings is still out there. Certainly they could bring somebody like that aboard. But as it stands right now, FFPC rookie drafts are this weekend. You kind of got to plant your flag one way or the other on Antonio Williams right now. And as it stands, it looks like he's going to be an integral part of this passing game for Washington.
You know how you're talking about, like, it's good to bounce this stuff off one another? Like, you just talked me out and you didn't even know it. Like, I can't stop seeing Juwan Jennings in crimson red now. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's that's going to happen. You can bookmark it dang near. That's the type of GM and team they have. They want to go win now. They'll bring in a veteran. You're 100% right. And I think you start looking at this for what it is a little more, a 3rd round wide receiver with a low hit rate at that. He's going to be the biggest riser, or one of the, outside of like guys like Dejon Stribling, just wild picks that happened. Like, he is going to rise significantly from what his ADP was right before the draft to right now. This is a great landing spot. Better. He was drafted higher. Like, he was drafted as like the wide receiver 7. I had him probably closer to like my wide receiver 12. I think that was basically consensus. So he's going to climb. I'm kind of tempering expectations a little bit just because, again, he is a 3rd round wide receiver. I don't think they're married to him. Yeah, Luke McCaffrey. I can't even think of many other names in that wide receiver room. So it's ripe for the picking. To your point, someone needs to step up in there besides Terry McLaurin. But I don't know. I'm just still struggling to get fully behind it. I'm struggling to make a 3rd rounder like a 2nd rounder because of the draft cap or because of the landing spot. Like, that's just not how it works. If they really like this guy and really were going to depend on him and knew they could in year 1, they would have taken him higher. Like, I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm really not. Like,
yeah. I will say some of the other names in the Washington receiver room.
Yeah,
they did sign Van Jefferson in free agency.
Oh, okay. Super Bowl champion Van Jefferson.
That's your quickest ticket to the Super Bowl right there. Treylon Burks, I can't remember. Did you just mention him? Treylon Burks?
No, but he's actually, that's kind of like, he's got something. I still have like a half a candle lit for my guy Treylon Burks. So
yeah, I mean, he was starting towards the end of last season, and he did make one of the best catches of the season last year, for what it's worth. And then you're looking at De'Ami Brown, Jalen Lane, Chris Hilton Jr., I believe out of LSU, was signed as an UDFA there. And then I know Bill Hollywood's in the chat right now. One of his favorites last year, Nick Nash, is on this team as well.
San Diego State legend. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So you're looking at, but that's it. I mean, there's no like world beaters on this team, obviously, except for Van Jefferson. But when you look at this depth chart, and the other thing too, David Blau is taking over, where he went from essentially like assistant quarterbacks coach to quarterbacks coach for like a few weeks, and now all of a sudden he's the OC. He's never called plays before. He's very young. He's only a few seasons removed from playing in the NFL. I mean, you got to get him some sort of veteran. We talk about the security blanket for the quarterbacks. He needs some sort of veteran security blanket that can, pop up and help him out on 3rd down, or, keep the chains moving on a drive. Diggs, to me, would certainly help that.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen would certainly help that, but we'll see what Washington does. As it stands right now, Antonio Williams looks like the 2nd most exciting player. 3rd most if you count Van Jefferson. 2nd most exciting player in that Washington receiver room right now. Moving on to, kidding aside, a player that I was excited about, and then he had to go and tear his ACL, was Chris Bell. He ends up going number 94 overall to the Miami Dolphins, a dude who was a baller at Louisville. And certainly, I think he said this himself, it hurt to see him slip behind some of the players that went ahead of him in the draft. Maybe his own teammate, Caleb Joseph, that he knew he was better than, but because of recovery from this ACL, it knocked him down the draft board. I love this player. I think he's awesome. Granted, he wasn't playing his best football before he tore the ACL, but certainly you just don't know, because everybody recovers differently. You don't McCoy, was it Jermon McCoy from Tennessee? Was that the corner that fell?
Yeah, 4th round. Yeah, to the Raiders. Yeah.
So I hear, I'm in Northeast Wisconsin, so I hear Packers fans knowing that they needed corners, and people were screaming, "Why don't we draft McCoy? Why don't we draft McCoy?" And I just look at a player like that, and like, I know how good he was prior to the ACL, but now you're talking about having a 2nd surgery, and this could be a redshirt year. Even when this guy is healthy, you just don't know how he comes back. Chris Bell coming off the ACL, yeah, he probably should be good. He should, get back to 100% of what he was. But we don't know, and maybe he never gets that high. But given that Bell did not get the draft capital that I think some people were projecting, and he ends up going late in the 3rd round, he's almost a day 3 pick, for God's sake. We can look at the investment in our rookie drafts of Chris Bell maybe not being that high, and knowing how sparse that Miami wide receiver room, like I talked about after they had traded Waddle to the Broncos, and everybody was freaking out about who Malik Willis is going to throw to. And I said, guys, after the NFL draft, we could be looking at Diggs on this team. We could be looking at Makai Lemon on this team, or Jordan Tyson, or Concepcion, or somebody like that. Like, we could be looking at like a stocked wide receiver room. Well, the receiver room is stocked, but I don't know how much talent is there. And so maybe Bell's the type of player we don't necessarily get excited for in 2026. But if they don't draft a guy like Jeremiah Smith in 2027 and Bell becomes the alpha, dude, this is a premium pick that you want to make in your rookie drafts this weekend, with the caveat, Johnny, that, again, ACL tear recovery, it's never the same for anybody. How do you feel about Chris Bell knowing that he's down in South Beach catching passes from Malik Willis when he's healthy enough to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a redshirt year. I think that's the first thing first. Like, do not draft him with expectations in year one, right? Don't draft him if you need immediate production. Don't draft him don't draft him in the first round. There was a super flex mock I did with Ian Hartitz, and he went in the first round, like you were just referencing, and Ian kind of laughed at that, like, whoa, right? Like, that's rich. That's a little too rich for me, but I do love the landing spot. It's so barren down there. And I did pull their roster up while you were talking. And yeah, it's like Jalen Tolliver, Caleb Douglas, right? I kind of like Kevin Coleman. They added a lot of names in that wide receiver room. And so I think it'll be a room where he has a chance to step up and earn a role. I like the talent. He had his red flags as a prospect, even without the injury, to be honest. But I'm a Louisville fan, so I kind of see with rose-colored glasses. Like, I'm 100% willing to give the guy a shot. But it feels like, just like in that mock I did, I feel like in every draft, you're just going to have one guy who's just seems to be way high. There's always a guy who people just like love, you know what I mean? And Chris Bell seems to be that guy where just somebody thinks he's like worth a mid first, and if he falls to you, take him. But if that's the case, then you probably you're just fine if the guy reaches for him. You know what I mean?
I always bring this up too, and some people get excited. They actually get excited to take these players. Like, oh, great, because when I have to cut down my roster, I can just put this guy on IR, and it's like a free roster spot. And like maybe to some case that's true. And I learned this lesson not in fantasy football and fantasy baseball. Those IR spots are going to fill up. Like you're going to have players that get hurt, and you're going to want to put them on there, and then you're running into a problem. You're just kicking that can down the road. Like, don't start off your dynasty season with a guy already on IR. Now, to your point, I'm with you. I am not reaching to draft Chris Bell, but in a class like this, where he is probably going to be going in like the second round or whatever, and I consider the healthy guys around him, that the ceiling, I think, becomes a little too mouthwatering to ignore. And at that point, I'll probably take Bell over some of these other guys, maybe over this next guy that we're going to talk about, and that's Germie Bernard out of Alabama. The Steelers actually, remember, this always used to be a thing. Maybe it still is a thing, but we always talk about, we get more excited about prospects when the team that drafts them actually trades up to draft them, right? Because like they not only believed in him enough to draft them, they believed enough to give up draft assets or whatever to get higher in the draft to make sure they got him. 6'1", 206. He was a backup for Alabama for 2 years, Michigan State and Washington, when he was an underclassman, and then Alabama. And by the way, before everybody freaks out, he was behind Jaden Reed, Keon Coleman, Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, all guys that got significant draft capital in the NFL draft.
Fun story, right? He was in some very interesting wide receiver rooms.
And so now, in 2 years ago, 50 catches, 800 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last year, 64 catches, 860 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He also had 18 carries for 101 yards and 2 additional touchdowns as well. He's run more than 500 routes in his career from the slot, and certainly he is a bit of a wide receiver chameleon. Whatever Pittsburgh needs him to do, he'll probably be able to do it. He's not fast, but he's fast enough, so I don't necessarily care about the speed at all. And what I do think is interesting here is the Steelers trading up for him. Now, they just traded for Michael Pittman. They already gave DK Metcalf the bag. But I'm wondering where Bernard factors onto this team, not only in 2026, but especially 2027 and beyond. Can we glean any information here with the Steelers trading up to 47 to take Bernard about what their plans are, not only for Bernard, Johnny, but what their future looks like with or without DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman?
Man, this offense throws me in a tailspin every time I think about it, just because, you've got Jalen Warren, you've got Rico Dowdle, right? You've got a new coaching staff entirely. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be, but I assume it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. His ADOT's, his depth of target has been lower and lower, right? And I think that's where a guy like Bernard can benefit on like dang near touch passes, screens, end arounds. These are plays where I see Jeremy Bernard coming in. Also see Eli Heidenreich maybe coming in and being like the backup role for that. So I think there's going to be a clear role in that offense of a guy who plays between the perimeter wide receivers. I think that's going to be Metcalf and Pittman, and not Pittman's still going to be a possession guy. Like he's going to be running a lot of slants and in-breaking routes, where I think you're going to see Metcalf running a lot of go routes. And then you've got Bernard in there kind of, again, working in the middle of the field. So that's kind of how I envision this offense playing out, especially to your point, the fact that they drafted him and gave up to get him. And, they were going to get a guy like Lemon, who they probably saw a similar vision with anyways. And so, the thing I always say is like, we can hate these prospects before the draft, but at the end of the day, like the draft capital is the biggest indicator we have for finding success in the NFL. It's early second round draft capital is something we have to prioritize. He gets a significant bump in terms of kind of what his ADP was before the draft and coming out of it. I think people start to overthink the landing spot. You have to if you want to overthink anything, overthink the draft capital.
Yeah, which you don't have to do here, as your point, at making that point. I think Bernard is, oftentimes we want instant gratification on a lot of these players, no matter the position, running back, receiver, tight end, what have you. And certain players have spoiled us, right? As far as, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers in recent years, Ashton Genty's another one. We just expect these guys to contribute right away, when in fact the NFL is hard and it's not the easiest adjustment, even for super talented players. And sometimes we've got to let these guys marinate. That's why I always say, when you're coming into your rookie draft, or the offseason the following year, see what you can get for some of these guys that underperform in your draft, because you might like Matthew Golden. Not that we'll get into Matthew Golden tonight, but he's starting to become that a little bit for me. That Packers passing game is getting a little bit more concentrated. We saw some flashes at the end of last season, and I still think there's a lot of people down on Golden, but he's another guy that just sniff around, see what happens. From the Packers to the Panthers passing game, let's talk about Chris Brazzell II. Led the SEC in receiving yards last year with over 1,000 on 65 catches. Tennessee receiver. I know it's like a cuss word. YouTube is probably going to demonetize us for bringing up Tennessee wide receiver here tonight. He didn't have to run the most extensive and thorough route tree at Tennessee. Quite frankly, this landing spot in Carolina, Johnny, maybe he won't have to, because you do have Tedero McMillan there. And he's the alpha. He's the guy that is Bryce Young's go-to. I'm more concerned with what this is going to do for all the cokeheads out there that love Jalen Coker, that are, I know there's a lot of player profiler people. Yourself,
I am one. I am.
That love Jalen Coker, and I'm wondering what your initial reaction was, and now that you've had time to let this marinate a little bit, what impact Brazzell, if any, is going to have on Jalen Coker, not only this season, but the next couple of years in Carolina.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny because like night one ends and we're all like, oh, Jalen Coker's a clear winner. Like they don't add a wide receiver in round one, and then they add one at like the end of day two, and it's a big deal, right? So I'm not overthinking this one either. I think this is a guy who plays kind of that more perimeter style. I think Coker is a really like, I'm going to get crucified for saying this, but like the play style somewhat reminiscent of Puka Nacua, where he works over the middle of the field a lot and works there comfortably. And that's not what Brazzell thrives at. I think he'll run a lot of routes. I don't think he will be incredibly productive, just because he's just not, it's just not going to be a spot where that's really what are in the cards for him. I'm not overly sold on him as a prospect either. So I think when you factor in, like, he's coming to play with the rookie of the year, Tedero McMillan, who is, established himself as being able to win at all three levels of the field. Then you got a guy like Coker who can do that somewhat too. And then he comes in, and I think he just kind of is used kind of in, I don't want to say decoy routes, but I think, Bryce Young, people will say he can throw a deep ball, and he could be the beneficiary of that. He's maybe more of a late round target for me in best ball formats as a result than he is like a priority pick in dynasty drafts.
The next player I want to talk about here as we move on from Carolina, let's stay in that same NFC South division and talk about Atlanta, who, yeah, they have London and Pitts, but I think that they were looking to add some punch to their number 2 wide receiver there. Well, punch is a funny word because I don't know how much punch Branch adds. Zachariah Branch, I almost called him Dion Branch. Zachariah Branch, the number 79 overall pick for the Falcons here, was, if we go back to when he was in high school, top wide receiver recruit, right?
Yep.
Played with Makai Lemon, played with Jacoby Lane. I think there was another big USC guy there that I'm forgetting that he played with there. Then he goes to Georgia and second in the country in receptions on screens and 135th in non-screen catches, Johnny. Okay. This is a player who weighs 177 pounds, 5'9" and 3/8 at the NFL Combine. And I didn't like this guy before the draft, and I'm still really struggling to say, oh yeah, he's going to be Atlanta's number 2 receiver. Still recognizing that there is a probably single-digit percentage chance that this guy could be close to Tyreek Hill. Probably not going to happen, right? But I allow it. I allow
fade or Tyreek Hill. Yeah.
I allow the possibility, right? And I've heard people say, I haven't heard anybody say this guy is Tyreek Hill, but I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, there's a small possibility he could be it. And when I hear that, and I'm like, Jesus, small possibility of Tyreek Hill, this draft class, maybe I should make some FOMO picks of Zachariah Branch in my rookie drafts. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I have not found anybody over the past 3 months that I can remember, at least, Johnny, that came and was a big Zachariah Branch evangelist here on this show. I'll give you the opportunity here, man.
I'm sorry, I'm going to let you down.
That's fine. That's fine because then we're just 2 peas in the same pod now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add than what you've already said. I think the one thing is, like, he starts to become worth a flyer in the third, and he's starting to slip, right? Like, we still have to look at draft capital. Look at you can't just say, oh, Brazel's so much better of a prospect than Branch. Like, no, he was drafted before Brazel, only 4 picks, but like every single team had a chance to pick those guys, and you know what I mean? Like, they all looked over them until the one team took them. And so I do think this is an interesting room to land in, with Mooney going out, with London being in there. And I think there's a role for him to be potentially carved out. Now, whether that's like a Olamide Zaccheaus type role, it remains to be seen, like kind of a more short gadget guy, right? But he does have that speed. He is electric with the ball in his hands. And those are the types of guys that I start to get more interested in than like the possession, the Malachi Fields types. I'm like, give me the guy who can take a ball to the house anytime he has it in his hands, because that's probably the more likelihood of a breakout than the guy who like is supposed to be a contested catch guy, but only it is 50% on contested catches. That doesn't mean you're any better than, it's a 50-50 ball. You should be winning more than 50-50, right? So,
right. Action scoring in the FFPC. So if this dude houses a kickoff return or houses a punt, whatever, you're going to get the scoring for that. So we have to consider that as well. I want to just touch on the tight ends conversation here. I know we went long on this segment, but this wide receiver class is so much more fun to talk about than the running back class. Kenyon Sadiq goes number 16 overall to the Jets. Total surprise. I mean, as surprised as I was about Ty Simpson going to the Rams, I mean, I was pretty close to almost being as surprised with Sadiq going to the Jets. How did he and Mason Taylor coexist together? Maybe they don't. Is Mason Taylor dead in fantasy right now? Your thoughts on Sadiq, the New York Jet, and how it affects Mason Taylor, a guy the Jets utilized a second-round pick on, Johnny, last year.
Yeah, it just kind of all cancels out. Both of them kind of become irrelevant to me at this point. Like, just to kind of keep it simple for you, I kind of hinted at it earlier. I think he's got a lot of development to do as a route runner if he's actually going to be a true target earner at the NFL level. I don't like the landing spot. I don't like the fact that they made that pick when, Makai Lemon, Omar Cooper were all still on the board, right? And so I just see it being a lot of blocking and stuff like that for Sadiq that doesn't equal a fantasy, gold mine.
Matt Price from Dynasty League Football and I were talking about this the Monday before the draft, and he made, and I'm putting words into his mouth a little bit here, but not totally, where he said Sadiq might be so good as a blocker that he's utilized a lot for his blocking rather than his pass catching. And didn't we see that at Oregon, Johnny?
Yeah.
I mean, like his production in college was not near as good as it should have been for a guy with his athletic prowess. And by the way, when he was given the opportunity to make plays, he made a ton.
Yeah.
And they just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was Dante Moore or whatever, just didn't want to throw to him or didn't want to throw over the middle of the field. Certainly frustrating to watch Sadiq. And now, God, I hope he's not tasked with the same kind of workload in the NFL.
Yeah, he will be he was the first player selected since Benjamin Watson was selected at 32nd overall by the Patriots to have less than 1,000 yards in the collegiate career. So total outlier, man. Total outlier.
The tight end that I think is a lot more fun to talk about in this class is Eli Stowers. Number 54 to Philly, 6'4", 240, a former quarterback recruit of Texas A&M, transfers to New Mexico State, and then he ends up moving to tight end because Diego Pavia was at New Mexico State.
Yeah, man.
And he crushed it there. He crushed it at Vanderbilt. He was the John Mackey Award winner as the nation's top tight end. The metrics at the combine, you were there. You saw them. They were out of control. It was unbelievable. And now he gets a season that he will probably be rotating. Maybe we'll see him on the field at the same time as Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
We know what the ceiling is here, and it could be electric, right? The question here for you, Johnny, Fantasy Picasso, how likely is Stowers going to be able to hit that ceiling in Philly with Lemon, with Devonta Smith, with these other guys here, with Goddard? But I mean, I'm not necessarily looking at this from a 2026 standpoint. I'm just looking at him as the future tight end in Philly, and knowing how good of a pass catcher he is, knowing how maybe not good he is as a blocker. For fantasy purposes, with Eli Stowers, how likely is it that he hits this pretty exciting ceiling?
Yeah, I'm all in on Stowers. I have barked about him for probably 30 plus to an hour on all my different shows at this point. So would point you guys to the Dynasty Deep Dive if you want to hear my full thoughts on him. But there's not many cases where I'm bumping a guy who's selected, 28, 38 spots after he was selected 54th and Sadiq was selected 16th, right? So there's a big discrepancy there. I'm talking about draft capital being the biggest leading indicator, all this, that, and the other. This is a guy I'm so high on. I'm making the exception. He is my tight end one in this class. So yeah, kind of for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. He's got quarterback background, that he's just super friendly with the quarterback. Just a great player, total freak athlete. The production's there. I think it's one that a lot of people are overthinking. And I think of like Colston Loveland landing with Cole Kmet, like it might be a slight, damper for the first couple of games or maybe even the first full season. But in Dynasty, we're playing for long-term. He's attached to a successful organization that finds a way to win. And Goddard's had a lot of really good games. And for Philly, he just hasn't always been healthy to finish as like a top 3 tight end. But I think it's a really exciting role in that offense. And I think he could be successful in year one.
Not that he'd have a Bowers year one. He won't have that.
Yeah.
But if he's sharing time and he catches like 50 balls for like 600 yards and he gets into the end zone half dozen times with Goddard, with Lemon, with Smith, dude, it's very exciting for those Stowers shareholders. It's going to be a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun this first hour. I can't believe an hour's gone by already. We're going to step out, take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about the running backs. We'll talk about the Notre Dame guys, as well as Kalen Black. Maybe not. And then we'll get into Francisco Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and so much more. The Fantasy Picasso, Jonny Tooma from Player Profiler, joins me here on FFPC Insider Access tonight. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a flash. FFPC Best Ball Tournament is live at myffpc.com. $400,000 grand prize. Why is that significant? Because it's $100K more than what we were doing last year. $300K to the winner in 2025, $400K to the 2026 winner, which could be you, just $125 to enter. The $35 Superflex tournament is back as well, and that features $100,000 grand prize. Turn $35 into $100K. That's going to be a lot of fun. Those drafts off and running right now, live and slows. Don't forget about the Big Gorilla, $350 to enter that. It is a $1 million grand prize again this year. The 7 Bananas promo is live. People have been winning free teams with the FFPC off that. The early Rampage tournament live too, $25,000 grand prize. Don't forget the dude who won that last year, Tommy Island himself, Tommy Heron, ended up taking 4th place overall in the Big Gorilla. So he got a healthy grand prize for the early Rampage tournament, and he had a healthy prize for being the 3rd runner-up last year. Those are available live and slow drafts, sit and goes as well. The Baby Gorilla, $125 to enter, $100,000 grand prize, same exact format as the Big Gorilla. Great entry into high-stakes fantasy football if you've always been considering it. And then don't forget about Dynasty and Empire Dynasty startups going on right now. myffpc.com. You can get in for as little as $100. We also have leagues up to $5,000. One of the $5,000 leagues was actually pretty close to filling prior to the show tonight. So check that out. And don't forget, we introduced Chop Leagues this year, the guillotine style format for the FFPC. Those start at $35. 18 teams, 17 weeks. Just don't be the lowest scoring team every week, and you win the league. All available at myffpc.com. All can be registered for, drafted with, and managed with the FFPC app in the App Store and Google Play. Check it out right now, myffpc.com, and get drafting, everybody. We're back live, FFPC Insider Access here, the final day of April. It is May Day tomorrow. Very excited to be talking with one of the guys that is the best. You know him, you love him from Player Profiler and Roto Underworld, ladies and gentlemen. Fantasy Picasso on the X. He is Jonny Tooma, who not only got a chance to go to the big game this year in Santa Clara, but also attended the NFL Combine. Let me ask you this, Jonny. We haven't talked about the NFL Combine. I know you're there. What do you think was your favorite part, and what was the best part as far as what you do at Player Profiler? What did you learn? What was the biggest thing like that made the difference for you? Like, oh my God, I'm so glad I went, because otherwise I never would have known, fill in the blank.
Yeah. I think the favorite part for anybody who gets to attend as a media member should be getting to ask the players questions, right? That's just, for me, every time my favorite part. Like, I will argue you can watch the drills at home and dang near do a better job of seeing what's going on and scouting it. They kind of place you pretty far away as media. So I'm just being realistic about all that. But like getting to ask Eric McAllister, a guy we didn't talk about, obviously, he went undrafted, but extremely productive. But he had some off the field issues. He had a Jones fracture as well. But long story short, like getting to ask him, hey, how are you cleaning up your character? What are you saying to teams who are asking about that? And seeing the way he answers that question to the media and knowing that that's a reflection of how he's going to answer that question to teams, that affects how you can prioritize these guys. I play a lot of Origins and Fast Draft. I've already invested 800 plus of my own dollars into this rookie class and what they're going to do in year one. So being able to go there, get boots on the ground and see what these players, how they interview, how they talk, it helped me kind of know where to place my chips leading up to the NFL draft. Last thing I'll say is just digging in with the tight ends. I got to really dig in with them and do a lot of like deep scouting on some of those players. Got to talk to Eli Raridon, a guy who I was super excited about, loved his landing spot. We're not going to get to talk about him tonight, but a guy I'm super excited about. Just hearing him talk about coming back from 2 ACL tears, And then hearing some other tight ends, like I'm not going to drop names, but like talk about wanting to quit football, talking about, some of the things where you could sense that maybe their heart isn't fully in the game. Like they don't realize that they're trying to spin it another way, but then you take what you want to take away from those things. And so such a unique experience. If anybody ever gets the opportunity, I would tell you, don't pass it up.
So when you're talking to these players, are you kind of like in the pit and they're at the podium?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to fight for a question. You got to take your turns and all that.
Let me ask you this, probably the most important question I'll ask you all night. What did Makai Lemon order at Chick-fil-A?
I think he ordered just a chicken sandwich. He was there with Jacoby Lane, but you know what? They got fries and they got a milkshake. Both of them got a milkshake, which was kind of naughty.
It's the most boring order ever. I mean, and I get like the milkshake. Like, yeah, I know it's a lot of empty calories or whatever, but they got to take the edge off at the combine. It's stressful. You got to get up off some steam somehow. So
it was before they ran it was the day before they ran the 40s. It was after the interviews. I'm just like, my head was like, I mean,
hold on. So Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon had Chick-fil-A milkshakes the day before they ran the 40 at the combine.
Makai didn't end up testing, but he did.
That's right. He did,
yeah. And I think Jacoby ran a 4.4. So I was like, you know what? That's faster than I expected him. So like, whatever.
How much faster it could have been had he not slogged through that milkshake the night before. But see, this is what you learn. This is what you learn at the combine. This is good stuff. All right, let's move on and talk about the backfields. The backfield in 2026 led by one Jeremiah Love, everybody's favorite 101 except for one person, and his name is Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier, who spent the majority of his career backing up Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Apparently, Adam Schefter reported, well, not apparently, he did report this, but apparently Algier believed he was going to be the lead guy in 2026 for that Cardinals backfield ahead of James Conner, ahead of Trey Benson. And now Algier signs this. It's like $12 million or whatever that he got on a 2-year deal. Then the Cardinals used the 3rd overall pick in the draft on Jeremiah Love. So I didn't think we'd have to unpack this, but we do. I thought this was a game of chicken that the Cardinals lost by winning. I thought all along, I'm like, the Cardinals are never going to take Jeremiah Love, but they got 3 guys back there. Well, here's my takeaway now. They're going to use Algier probably in a similar or maybe a poor man's way that to how he was used in Atlanta, at least for Bijan Robinson's rookie year. James Conner is kind of an afterthought. I don't know what his role is going to be, but certainly I don't want to take the chance on him in best ball leagues and redraft leagues right now for where he's going. And Trey Benson might be cut. I mean, to me, this is just he had an opportunity. He was okay. Then he got hurt, but we're not in the practice facility. We're not seeing what the Cardinals are seeing. So the fact that they decided that Love was a must at the 103 when they have literally, I mean, I don't want to say literally, but like outside of wide receiver, you could have drafted just about anybody at quarterback probably. At 103, you could have drafted just about anybody, and it would have been a better pick than Jeremiah Love. Recognizing that he is a blue chip player, one of the best running backs that we have seen, running back prospects that we've seen in the last half decade, maybe full decade. Your thoughts on Jeremiah Love, and we'll get to the rookie draft here in a little bit. How big of a hit, if a hit at all, is he taking now that he ended up in Arizona as opposed to Tennessee or as opposed to Washington or New York or any of these other places?
No, see, I don't look at it like that because it's like, yeah, then it's Tony Pollard still nibbling at him with Tajay Spears sprinkled in, right? The part that does kind of take a blow to the sails or whatever is Algier being that hammerhead near the goal line. Like that totally can happen. And it totally, it puts a small dent in things for sure. But the way I look at it is like every individual pick within those top 5 picks is just like, it bumps them up a tier the higher they go to me. You know what I mean? If you go 2nd overall, that's even crazier, right? And then, so like going 3rd overall was just like, I was excited as a fantasy football fan. Like, awesome. We have a guy who has passed every single box with flying colors now. Junior declare, elite testing, awesome production, and draft capital is, 99 out of 100 when you consider the fact that this is the richest running back contract ever that this guy gets. Most guaranteed money. You just love that in terms of like They are paying this guy a ton to be a weapon there. He is going to get the ball a ton. Does he maybe lose a little bit of goal line work? Yeah, maybe. Does he make that up in other areas of being like a weapon, as they keep calling him? Yeah, I'm all in, man. I'm excited about it.
He is going right now. Jeremiah Love is going and this is redraft in the FFPC Big Gorilla. He's being drafted as running back 10 right now, Johnny. He is the 207 on average. Right, he's actually smack dab in a 5 running back glut there. He's right behind Achane and Barkley. He's right ahead of Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker. Does running back 10 at the 207 seem like a spot that you want to invest in Love this year, knowing the presence of Algier, Connor, and everybody else there?
Yeah, I think that sounds exactly right. And I think the only thing I start to wonder is, like, I love Barkley, but I think we saw a little less juice last year from him. We can't draft people for what they were. Like, running backs are highly productive in their first 3 years in the NFL. Like, most of them that hit and hit high, they hit fast, So if you think he's going to hit, we've been let down with overdrafting Genty last year, like at that cost, right? I think this cost is kind of almost factored in from people getting burned from Genty last year. So I think the cost is just right.
The radio station I used to work for locally here has a draft bash every year, Johnny, where they get together, they watch the draft, listeners, hosts, and alike. One of the guys who's a host there, and I actually host a local fantasy football show with him here in Northeast Wisconsin. He plays Dynasty fantasy football. He's been playing Dynasty, not a super long time, but like 4 or 5 years or whatever. Now, granted, what I'm going to tell you, he had a few cocktails in his system when he said this, okay? But he said, who would you take now at the 101 in rookie drafts? Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price? Yeah. Okay. Serious question.
Fire.
And I was like, I can't believe I'm answering this right now. And I thought about it, not saying that it's not Love. Okay. But maybe it's closer than I thought. And then I saw this report earlier this afternoon from Jeremy Fowler saying that he's getting the sense that Jadarian Price won't have to be a bell cow right away. And I think part of the allure of drafting Jadarian Price in the mid-first round of your rookie draft is getting bell cow
right opportunity, away,
right? While Zach Charbonnet is recovering from this ACL. Apparently, Fowler has talked to league executives, coaches, and scouts about all the rookies, every team's draft picks this year. So this may not be coming directly from what the Seahawks are saying. This could be coming from other team scouts, coaches, what have you. Some people around the league, according to Fowler, don't think he's going to be a 3-down back right away, which I guess when you unpack it, for a guy that many of us
a lot of passes.
He doesn't catch a lot of passes, and many of us didn't even think he was going to be a first-round pick. So maybe it's not all that crazy to say, oh, yeah, he's not a 3-down guy in September or October or whatever. Not only did he not catch passes, wasn't all that great in pass protection. So you can have a guy like George Holani out there who has had some success and experience doing that. They brought in Emmanuel Wilson. Well, I know when Josh Jacobs was hurt, we saw Wilson doing some 3-down work. Not all the time because Chris Brooks is doing a lot of 3rd downs, but Wilson we did see out there. This is a guy who is Scott McLuhan, the old GM for the Commanders, said he thinks this guy is Nick Chubb. Jadarian Price is Nick Chubb. And I don't want to laugh at stuff like this anymore because I've been proven wrong before. But I am not all that excited about Jadarian Price. I'm probably going to take him in a few spots. But I wonder what happens when Charbonnet comes back from his ACL, if it is this year, and it may not be this year. But I wonder what happens. Like, does that mean I was overdrafting Price in the mid-first round, which is probably what it's going to take to get him this year in rookie drafts? I don't know, man. Like, I'm underwhelmed. It's not often I'm underwhelmed by a first-round rookie running back, but I'm kind of underwhelmed with Jadarian Price.
No, yeah, it's a reach as a pick. It is what it is, but for fantasy, we love it, right? This is a guy who now has a 5th-year option attached to his contract. Everything you get with a first-round pick, right? Mm-hmm. But I will say, you brought up a good point. There's no way he's out there on 3rd down at the beginning of the season. One thing people don't understand is how much they like George Holani. Like, he was out there playing important snaps for this Super Bowl, and he delivered for them, and they recognized that. John Schneider was gushing about him in one of those post interviews after the Super Bowl. So It's a great landing spot. It's, we knew all offseason, whoever ends up as a Seahawks free agent signing or draft pick, all eyes on that, right? Emmanuel Wilson doesn't scare me one bit. George Holani still doesn't really scare me one bit in terms of like taking away what they were planning to do with Jadarian Price all along, which is probably giving him over 250 carries throughout the season and leaning on him as an early down grinder. Like, that's great for fantasy. I think he's going to have a goal line role. This is where you also get a little bit of nuance with like half point PPR. He gets an additional bump, right? Because there's a less of a premium for catching passes. And so in those types of formats, I'm even more bullish on him. But outside of the top 3 wide receivers after like Makai Lemon, I'm okay with taking this guy like in rookie drafts. I think, yeah, he's gone up. Zach Charbonnet was like the 107 in single quarterback leagues not that long ago, and that was kind of gross. Like, we just have to deal with it sometimes. That was a mid-second round running back we were taking with that pick.
Yeah, John Mono chiming in right now to quote Adam Sandler, "The price is wrong, B word," and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be demonetized. But yeah, the price is interesting. He's a guy that I like, kind of like what you said. After those top receivers are gone, I'll take him. I don't have to be excited about it, but understanding the range of outcomes here, that maybe Price is going to be really good, and maybe it was just a case of Jeremiah Love taking all those pass catches away from Price in college, and he's able to catch 40, 50 balls in the pros, or maybe more. I don't know. But yeah, Price I'm a little bit underwhelmed with right now. Now, Jonah Coleman goes to Denver, which, I mean, Sean Payton is aggravating enough with how he treats his receivers, but now he's going to be, treating his running backs the same way. And quite frankly, he's been treating his running backs this way, even dating back to his time in New Orleans. Sean Payton saying that Jonah Coleman can play on third downs right away, which is not great for fantasy because this muddies the water for J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey as well. I will say the Dobbins contract, I still am scratching my head at a little bit with how much money they gave him. This might be a situation to avoid in redraft, but I think in 2027 and beyond, I think the Harvey Coleman combo playing behind Bo Nix with Jalen Waddle on this team, and obviously who was the tight end they drafted? Jolie? Did they get Jolie?
Yeah, they traded up. To your point,
traded up to get Johnny Jolie.
Yeah, 5th and a 6th to get Justin Jolie. So
Justin Jolie, excuse me. And then Cortland Sutton. I don't know what his future is going to be like in Denver, but I do like Pat Bryant quite a bit. So this is all getting away from the point that I think Coleman and Harvey complement each other well. Maybe doesn't happen this year. Coleman's a guy I want to be in business with. I don't know how high he's going to go in my rookie draft. I want to be careful not to overpay for him, Johnny, because I do believe there are going to be a lot of frustrating games for Jonah Coleman owners in 2026.
Let me ask you this. Are you one of those guys who thinks J.K. Dobbins is going to get hurt again in 2027 or 2026? I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way he plays 17 games. That's for sure.
So then, you know what I'm saying? Like, then it starts to poke a hole into things, right? Like, I think everybody's like, oh, J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. Like, then say it with your chest. Get the guy who's going to benefit from that. Like, we have seen, take everything you hate about the Broncos, even though they were 14-3. And by the way, I'm a big Broncos fan. So, Bo Nix doesn't throw the ball deep. It's a gimmicky offense. All the things they'll say. Yeah, they do. They throw the ball to the running backs a lot. They leverage the running backs a lot. It's a great position for fantasy. We've seen Sean Payton have several seasons with multiple RBs be productive. I think of it like after J.K. Dobbins is gone in a year or two, probably after next year, like that, it really starts to be almost like a 1A, 1B scenario where Coleman can earn 1A because he's a better between the tackles runner. Like, I like a lot of what I saw from RJ Harvey as a rookie, but there was times where he just blind when he was running in between the tackles. He just, I don't know how to explain it. Just terrible vision. And I think they're going to give Coleman an opportunity, and he's a great player. He's a player I really like. He's my RB2 heading into the draft. So I love the landing spot. I think it's good long-term. And I kind of like think it's funny when people are like, oh, it's terrible at the mud. No offense. Like, you're like, the water's so muddy. And it's like, but we all agree that J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy for more than like 2 weeks at a time. So like, what's the big deal? They need a running back. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that you bring this up too with Coleman is, well, the Broncos have brought this up, how tough a runner he is. And if Peyton believes this dude can play on third downs right away, his rookie year, I mean, maybe we have to be looking at this with Jonah Coleman colored glasses, whatever that would be.
Yeah.
That this guy could just make RJ Harvey a handcuff next year, right? And if that's the case, and you only have to pay a second round rookie pick for Coleman, well, suddenly I can get a little bit more excited about this as well. Let's move on here. Nicholas Singleton, good old Nick Singleton, was drafted and signed, by the way, by the Titans today. 5th round pick, 4-year deal. He's going to be playing. He's going to be playing behind Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard right away. We'll see what it'll probably be involved in special teams as well. But when you consider the upside, the talent, the way we looked at this prospect early in his career at Penn State, and knowing that Pollard and Spears probably aren't long for Tennessee, which kind of features an up-and-coming offense now with Ward and Tate and these other receivers they drafted last year. I don't know, man. Singleton's a little exciting, but he's not that cheap in drafts either. Let's throw rookie draft capital out the window of what you have to pay for this guy. What do you envision Nick Singleton to be in Tennessee?
Yeah, I think it's a little murkier there, right? Like, you could argue it's somewhat similar to like Jonah Coleman, some of the arguments I was making, but like, we're dang near 2 full rounds draft capital difference in terms of where they were selected, and kind of also where I have them evaluated on like a talent basis. And so I think this isn't just some amazing landing spot. I think like Tony Pollard's still going to be the 1A. I think, Tyjae Spears is going to threaten Nick Singleton on kind of like passing work downs, which is, again, like Nick Singleton, not a great between the tackles vision guy. That's not his penchant, right? So he's going to be competing for what he does do well, which is catch passes. But Tony Pollard can catch passes, and so can Tyjae Spears, right? So I like him as a flyer because, again, you start getting in this ugly place of like, mid-round receivers or late-round running backs. And at that point, I almost just prefer the running backs because there's a higher chance that they have a chance to, get someone in front of them gets injured and they step into a 20 carry game, right? And that's all we're really chasing in fantasy. But that's what you're chasing with Nick Singleton is just like a couple of injuries. And I kind of, like I said with Jonah Coleman, except we have a guy who's very injury prone with J.K. Dobbins, and we also know he does a lot of the little things really well, which I can't necessarily say for Nick Singleton. Not an amazing pass blocker. That's another thing I like about Coleman, that I think that's the difference. Like, I think that's what he can earn a spot on the field. I just don't see Singleton being some like, oh my God, he's so much better than Pollard and Spears, we got to get him out there on all 3 downs,
Let's throw Pollard and Spears out of the equation and just look at the future in Tennessee. Do you view Nick Singleton as a player that is always just going to top out as a 1A or a 1B? He'll never be. I mean, you think about 5th round draft capital, that's not a whole lot. That's what the NFL thought of him. Do you think that? But Chase Brown was also a day 3 pick, and look at where he's been. Do you view Singleton as always just sort of like a backfield committee member, or what are the chances you think that he could ever be the guy for the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I mean, pretty low, just to be dead honest. Like, I like the prospect, but I think he's the typical guy we get all excited about who ends up being an RB3 behind those 2 guys. Like, those are decent players ahead of him.
His teammate in college, Katron Allen, the all-time leading rusher in Penn State University history, goes to the Washington Commanders with pick 187. What's most exciting about Katron Allen for me, Johnny, is probably not how good of a player he is, but the backfield he joins. Yeah. Rashad White, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Jerome Ford, all these guys that don't really strike fear in the hearts of fantasy players when they consider drafting Katron Allen. A player that seemingly is, and I think he's going to make a good coach someday, because he has all the intangibles that you want from a running back, but he doesn't necessarily have the speed. He doesn't necessarily have the natural athletic cutting ability, right? But he's got the vision. Like he can find a hole and get, if you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. You need 5 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. You need 1 yard, he'll get you 3 yards. One of those types of players. And when we talked about the Washington Commanders offense in the first segment with Antonio Williams, how does Kaytron Allen factor in to this offense maybe as soon as this year, knowing that there are not any super serious threats in the running game for the Commies as it stands right now, at least, Johnny?
Yeah, we love the backfield that he landed in. And again, like this was the 1A at Penn State. He was able to displace top high school recruit Nick Singleton and be the guy who got more touches throughout their college careers. They spent all 4 years together side by side at Penn State. So it kind of says something about their character. Both of those guys did not want to transfer. I think he's the type of guy who, again, kind of gets slept on, but he'll carve out a role. And he's done that before. I'm trying to find it. I can't pull it up off the top of my head. But he compared himself to someone like Adrian Peterson or Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Me too, Bubba. Me too. When I'm out there playing Thanksgiving against my family, you know what I mean?
It was wild. He, okay, I think I got it right now. It was an interview he did. This is the quote, Kaytron Allen. Direct quote here. Quote: "I'd say I got a little Bijan Robinson to me. In the past, I'd say Adrian Peterson or Le'Veon Bell. My God."
Me too.
When it comes to podcasting, Johnny, I got a little Joe Rogan in me.
Yeah.
I got a little Caller Daddy in me, like something like that. And if we want to go old school, a little Edward R. Murrow. I think that's how I would just say. No, I'm being totally facetious, but you love the confidence. Love the confidence. We had a question in the chat, not a question, but just a comment. And I figure we have to touch on this because this dude did get day 2 draft capital. GDLT1, Kalen Black for the 49ers is a sleeper. I want somebody, and by the way, we appreciate you, GDLT1, hanging out tonight. But I want somebody to craft, the Masters where they have the tradition unlike any other, and they show all the do, like the piano music playing. I want somebody to throw together just a quick 10-second thing, a tradition unlike any other. The Niners overdrafting a running back on day 2, and throw in the Tyrion Davis Price, throw in the Joe Williams, throw in the Elijah, like all these guys that have busted for the Niners. Listen, I'm fine if you believe you're smarter than the field and you overdraft these players and they turn out. But the problem is, these guys have not turned out for the Niners. Like I will rip teams who do this year after year when they don't have the results, and throw DeJon Stribling in there as well. And maybe Stribling works out. I don't know. But the previous history with the Niners on day 2 drafting skill positions ain't all that great. So yeah, is he a sleeper? Sure, he's a sleeper because he could be the backup to Christian McCaffrey, who cheated death last year for fantasy. I don't know if he does it 2 years in a row. And if Black is the guy that who eventually beats out Jordan James and he's the guy, then yeah, I guess he could be a sleeper. But I'm going to find better ways, even in this draft class, to use my rookie draft picks than drafting Kalen Black, Johnny.
Dude, I just want to give you a slow clap. Yeah. Total fade. Yeah. I mean,
total fade for both of us. Okay.
Sorry. I don't think he's a sleeper anymore either, right? Like, it's like now the secret's out, This was a guy who wasn't invited to the combine. If he was an undrafted free agent signing and then somehow carved out a role, like that's a sleeper. But now there's a bunch of eyes on this guy. And again, I was just scouting guys who were out the combine because that's a signal of who NFL teams want to draft.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally wild. They took him in the 3rd round, man. Wild.
God bless the NFL for not letting the Niners pick who gets to come to the combine and who doesn't. I think that combine would be a lot less entertaining if that were the case. We're going to get to our rookie draft here in a second. I do want to touch on the quarterbacks here briefly. A couple of angles here. Fernando Mendoza obviously goes number 1 to the Raiders here. What's the over-under for you this year, Johnny, and how many games he starts for the Raiders? They bring Kirk Cousins aboard. We already heard Kubiak saying that he would prefer not to have Mendoza start week 1. Listen, It's the number one overall pick. We say these things, or these coaches say these things, but when the real bullets start flying and the NFL season starts, it gets tougher and tougher to sit these guys. What's the over-under for you in games started by Mendoza in 2026?
Yeah, everything's all fun and games until Mark Davis is in your face with that bowl cut, right? So, like, I agree with you. I'll put it at 12. A 17-game season. I think there's a shot he is their 17-game starter. And if not, I think it's a 4 or 5 game kind of like, let's, warm it up, let him see a couple. But I see him playing a lot of football this year.
Could be one of those things too, where once the Raiders kind of drop off of contention, maybe in like mid-October or something.
Yeah, exactly. After week 5.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is with how rich, I mean, I don't know if you've looked, you probably have looked at this, these 2027 mock drafts. My God, the talent that is going to be going, this guy from Coleman coming from Auburn to Texas with Jeremiah Smith as the top 2 receivers. Indiana could have 2 first-round receivers this coming year as well. Yeah. And not to mention Lacey from Ole Miss and I was at Hardy from Missouri.
Ahmad Hardy's fantastic.
Yeah, Brown from Louisville. And literally, I mean, I'm not, this is not hyperbolic when I say this, Johnny. I have seen 5 way too early mocks for 2027. I've seen no less than 7 different quarterbacks go in the first round, which we know won't happen, but it tells you the breadth and the depth of the quarterback position this coming year as opposed to last year. And I know 2026 or 2025, everybody said, 2026 is the quarterback year. Well, we were wrong, but we could be right in 2027. Last thing I'm going to bring up, Ty Simpson. Now, the rookie draft that we're going to do here in the next segment, the final segment coming up in just a couple of minutes, is 1 quarterback. But if you were drafting in a super flex league, how do you handle Ty Simpson, knowing he's probably the future for Puka Nacua and Sean McVay and the Rams, but also knowing that they're talking about a contract extension for Matthew Stafford? And Simpson might not only be sitting in 2026, he could be sitting in 2027. God forbid he does the Jordan Love thing where he sits 3 years or anything like that. But this is a weird guy to handle in Superflex drafts.
Yeah. I think he's a late first, right? Like still, and especially in like 6-point passing touchdown format, and being tied to that Rams offense. So that's, if once you get off 6-point passing touchdown, if he's slipping into the second round, like maybe that's okay. But top 13 capital quarterback, like, I don't know, man. It's just, you just have to follow that draft capital sometimes. Like, he is going to get a significant shot at a certain point, and he's in a great landing spot. I really like the idea of like managers who have Stafford trying to figure out a way to get their hands on Ty Simpson, because I do think Stafford, we were all holding our breath all year with him last year. He was not doing training camp. We didn't know how he's going to hold up. Played the best season of his career and won MVP. But what if that stuff comes back to surface again early in 2026? And we're looking at Ty Simpson playing some meaningful snaps for a good team. There's the tape is wishy-washy, right? Like there's some accuracy issues, but there's some really high-level quarterback play as well. And I think they made this pick because they see him as the future of their franchise. And whenever you've got something like that in your, on your resume, like you can't let that slip too far in a rookie draft.
I don't really doubt the chops necessarily from Simpson. The thing that gives me pause is the lack of collegiate experience and the lack of collegiate starts. We saw Dante Moore, not to bring him up again, but this is a guy that I think in my mind went back to college this year because he only had 20 starts and knew that he needed to face more pressure and face more defensive fronts and be able to pick apart things that he hadn't necessarily seen starting for Oregon. And I wonder if Simpson might have been better served to do that as well. But then you consider the quarterback class this year and the draft capital he got. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I think his agent did a great job. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's step out, take our final break. When we come back, let's do a mock draft. Oh, yeah. FFPC standard dynasty. So we're starting 1 quarterback, tight end premium. We're going to go 2 full rounds. I think we can get through 2 full rounds in 20 minutes with Fantasy Picasso. Jonny Tooma, the host of the Dynasty Deep Dive, does so much for Player Profiler at Fantasy Picasso on the X. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny and I will be right back with our Dynasty to get you set for FFPC Dynasty Rookie Draft Weekend. We'll be back right after this. FFPC Big Gorilla Drafts going on right now, live and slow. $350 to enter a $1 million grand prize, the 7 Bananas and Early Rampage tournament promos going on right now. Don't forget about the Baby Gorilla. If you've always want to play high stakes fantasy football, this is your opportunity. $125. That's all it costs. And you can win $100,000 in the Baby Gorilla this year. You can also win $400,000 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. That's up $100,000 from what we did last year for the grand prize winner. $400,000 grand prize, $125 to enter. You can also enter the Superflex Best Ball Tourney. $35 to enter a $100,000 grand prize there as well. Dynasty and Empire startups also going on at myffpc.com. Start at 100, they go up to 5,000. Chop leagues, the guillotine style leagues for the FFPC going on. $35 is where they start. You can win your way into a big gorilla or a main event, or just take the cash, whatever you want. All of these leagues can be registered for, drafted, managed, everything. Lineup setting, blind bids, whatever. The FFPC app available in the App Store and Google Play. MyFFPC.com is where to go for this. That's MyFFPC.com. Jonny Tooma from Player Profiler and myself do an FFPC Dynasty Rookie Draft right after this. FFPC Insider Access rolls on here. Final 17 minutes of the show. Hey, why not do a mock draft? Well, in order to do that, I need a co-host, and he is tonight Fantasy Picasso on X, Jonny Tooma, who is the host of the Dynasty Deep Dive. You saw him do the 3-round Superflex mock with Ian Hartitz from Fantasy Life this morning, right? That was this morning?
Out on podcast this morning. It'll be out on YouTube on Saturday morning, the full video.
Beautiful. Love it. Just in time for all these people doing their FFPC rookie drafts, which launched this weekend. So here's what we're going to do, Johnny. I'm going to give you the number 1 pick. You're going to take the odds through the first 2 rounds of this. I'll take the evens. This is start 1 quarterback. This is tight end premium. And I give you the floor at the 101. I feel like I kind of made it easier for you.
Yeah, Jadarian Price.
Yeah, Jadarian Price. Or Van Jefferson, if he's out there, and because it's a rookie free agent draft, certainly you could take Van Jefferson if you want it. Okay. I think I might have made it easier for the first 3 picks, but we'll see how it goes. You're on the clock at the 101. Who are you taking?
Yeah, pencil me in. Jeremiah Love.
Is it when you talk about Jeremiah Love, is there any kind of landing spot that would have changed and had you taking Carnell Tate or Tyson, anybody at the 1, or was this just a foregone conclusion no matter where he went?
Yeah, as long as he was in the early mid first, I was locking him in.
Okay. This is tough for me because I'm a Tyson guy. I think I've warmed up to Carnell Tate enough right now that I'm not going to let that draft capital go aside, understanding that he should be the number 1 wide receiver right away. where Jordan Tyson doesn't have to worry about that. And I understand I was just listening to somebody talk about this the other day, that being the number one wide receiver in your NFL team is one of the most overrated things. And I'm starting to warm up to that a little bit, but not enough yet. So I'm going to go Carnell Tate here, the guy who should be catching passes from a young up-and-coming quarterback that loves throwing the ball down the field. That Tennessee may not be great yet as a football team, but there could be a lot of passing going on. We saw Ward really blossom at the end of last season, and the fact that we can get his number one target here at the 102, I'm going to take Carnell Tate here, with the caveat saying, Johnny, if I could trade down to the 103, I would do it because I love Tate and I love Tyson.
But here's the beauty. When you know your league mates like me and you know I'm high on Makai Lemon, I'm going to take Makai Lemon at 103, and then you get both your guys in this scenario, right? I mean, we don't get every other pick in real life, but in this scenario, this is a great example of, like, you really do know your league mates sometimes that well, where you can kind of game the system a little bit and get both the guys you really wanted. I'm taking Makai Lemon at 103. I'm playing the long game here of, like, this is going to be the guy when in 3 years, after week 1, it might not have been JSN, but 3 years later, he's no doubt that was the guy you wanted to own, right? And so that's kind of how I see this unfolding with him, taking him at 103, and I'm not selling. Like, I'm diamond handsing him. You know what I mean?
Okay, right, exactly. So now, when it comes to Lemon versus Tyson, before the draft, you would have taken Tyson here. But the fact that Lemon gets the plum landing spot.
No, Lemon was always my wide receiver 1. So,
okay, so he was always your number 1, even though you like Tyson, right?
Yeah, dude, they're all great players. It's not like, right, I don't like this guy. Like, it's just you're arguing over, like, it's all the work you've done, all the research, and it comes down to hairs and just preferences. And I'm leaning Lemon.
All right. So and the other thing too is, while Lemon did not get the capital that Tyson did, the team that drafted Lemon traded up for him. And I think there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased as punch here because I get Jordan Tyson at the low.
Pleased as punch.
Pleased as punch. And I'll say this too. I have the 104 in, I think, 2 of my dynasty leagues. And if I'm able to get Tyson at the 104 in either one, there's going to be a party and you're invited. Because this will be a lot of fun to get Jordan Tyson at the 104. Quite frankly, I don't know. I have come around on Makai Lemon too. Maybe the idea here is in start 1 quarterback tight end premium leagues. If you like all 3 of these guys still, and you like all 3 of these guys landing spots, yeah, it's going to be tricky to get somebody to trade up. But maybe the right spot to be in is the 104, Johnny.
Yeah, to your point, it's kind of just whichever falls to you end up happy with. You're 100% right. Yeah. I think there's also, like, certain people getting sour on the 4th pick, certain people getting sour on Makai Lemon. I think there's an opportunity there, as you can tell how I've kind of hyped up what I believe he will be long term. Like, go get that 4th pick if people are willing to give it away for, an equitable, like a fair trade.
Now 105 gets a little bit more tricky here with tight end premium. We talked about Price. Obviously, Sadiq comes into play. I don't know if you. I don't know if
Stowers. I'm not that crazy. I'm going to go Jadarian Price here. Running backs are a premium, man. In any format you play, a bell cow running back. And I know he's not going to be a bell cow or whatever, but a running back who gets 60% of the opportunities, 60% of the plus of the snaps, and on any team is a valuable asset. So it's a bit of a, like, most of the leagues I'm in, I'm kind of in this win now stage where I've got wide receiver depth. So I'm just thinking through in several leagues that I'm in. That's probably what I'm doing with that pick.
I can't argue with it. Jadarian Price at the 105. It makes perfect sense.
It's gross, dude. It's gross. I get it. You talked about it earlier and said it was gross.
It's gross from the sense of this year's class. No, it's gross in the sense of just dynasty rookie drafts in general. But I'm not subscribing to that. In this year's class, I think there is so much grossness, for what it's worth, or so to speak, that you can't really, like, it's just, are we focusing on the lipstick covered used cigarette butt in the dirty puddle outside the bar? No, it's just all gross. So I don't think one gross thing stands out other than, more so than the others.
Well, this is where it starts to get pretty gross. To your point, like those first 4 picks, like it's fun.
John Daigle was saying this the other day that like I can't remember. This is going to irritate me, but he got to the 209 in a rookie draft and he made some sort of, ridiculous hyperbolic statement about, you just wanted any. Ian Hartitz was saying this on X the other day. Like he was even in the first round and he said, I'll trade this pick for one Kona Big Wave. It's like, it's insane. Okay. Anyway, 106 tight end premium. Obviously Sadiq enters the fray here. I always say this on the show. I'm a weak man, Johnny. I'm not strong enough to take Kenyon Sadiq here because of his landing spot. Give me KC Concepcion despite Denzel Boston. You kind of sold me on this pick earlier that these guys in Cleveland are the types of players that are going to, everybody helps each other here. And I think Concepcion is the player I want to go with at 106 over Sadiq, over Stowers, over Cooper. That's who my choice is at 106. You're on the clock at 107.
That would have been my choice, and I'm going to go Omar Cooper next. I think, you start to get, you're looking at who are the first round picks, and he was the other first round pick besides Sadiq, and I think he's got a better chance to be a fantasy, like a big time fantasy contributor for all the reasons we talked about earlier. Just some of the concerns with Sadiq really just being tied up doing grunt work as opposed to being like a pass catching weapon in that offense.
108, I'm going to break the tight end seal, but not with Sadiq. I'm going to go Eli Stowers.
You dirty dog. You're looking at my board. I'm convinced you're over here looking at my board.
I am not looking at your board. The reason I'm taking Stowers here, and we talked about this earlier, I'm drafting for upside here. I'm drafting for not only depth of my team going forward, but I do think the landing spot for Stowers represents a significantly higher ceiling and what he could be for fantasy going forward in 2027 and beyond. So a tight end premium, and I'm getting Stowers at the 108. It is a chance well worth taking. That's who I grab at 108. You're on the clock at 109.
Dude, you're such a gangster. And this is what scares me is when you get into like the FFPC world, like you're playing against other sharps, right? Like this is, you think, oh, in a casual league, like I'll go scoop Stowers in the second round. Everything will be hunky dory, crazy stuff, man. I got to go now. You've like put a gun to my head and I got to draft the guy I've been crapping on. I mean, he's the first round player left. It's tight end premium format. We're still, there's too many signals there to ignore. We're taking Kenyon Sadiq at this point.
Sadiq from the Jets is the 109 pick right behind Eli Stowers. I'm on the clock at 110. I already took Concepcion. I'm going to go with the big-bodied receiver on this team and see what happens with Denzel Boston. Obviously, in a perfect world where nobody gets hurt and everybody turns out the way we think, Denzel Boston represents a player with a little bit of a limited upside. But if somebody were to go down in Cleveland, or if they get really good quarterback play and need that player to make those contested catches down the field, to make those end zone, red zone catches, it's going to be Boston. So we're talking about late first round. There's not a lot to like here. I'll go with the upside of the guy that probably should have been a first round pick, ends up going early in the second round. Give me Boston. You, Johnny, are now picking at 111.
Yeah, Boston's a baller, dude. I love that he returned punts in college too, like 6'5", returning punts for touchdowns. You don't always see that. I'm going to take Jonah Coleman here for all the reasons I talked about earlier. Is this a guy I think has a good landing spot, long-term upside, and could be a sneaky round one or year one contributor.
Coleman is the penultimate pick of the first round. I am going to go based on how this draft has gone. I didn't think I was going to do this. And we cautioned an hour ago on this show for people not to take Chris Bell in the first round. The upside is too tantalizing for me at this point. I thought one of these guys would slip, but because it is you and I drafting and you are very smart and I am who I am, I'm going to take Chris Bell as the final pick of the first round here going forward. I do believe again, if Miami is able to avoid Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman in the draft next year, this is a player who should represent a fantastic value as the number one wideout over Kevin Coleman, over help me out, the other guy they drafted in front of him, Caleb
Douglas.
Caleb Douglas. Yeah. So ahead of those guys, I love Chris Bell's upside. I'm willing to take the plunge on him at 112. And I have a lot of 112 picks this year. Why, Johnny? Because I'm awesome at Dynasty
Because
Fantasy.
I'm the champ.
Okay. So this might be a pick I make more often than I care to admit. Chris Bell goes at the 112. Lead us off in the second round.
I'm going to go with Jeremy Bernard. I mean, 44th overall pick. Again, I liked the player. It's again, dude, it's starting to get real gross, right? You're talking about taking a third round wide receiver, taking a red shirt. You're in at the end of the first. So like there's flaws in all these guys, but I'll go Bernard.
I'm going to take Antonio Williams here at the 202. And no, it's not nice. But what is Bryan Cranston saying? Argo, it's the best bad idea we have. And that is what I'm saying with Antonio Williams here. A guy that maybe doesn't develop into anything, but should have a significant, as it stands right now, until Washington signs somebody, maybe they don't sign somebody. This is a player that could have a significant pass catching role in our nation's capital right away in 2026. Antonio Williams goes to be at the 202. Who are you taking at the 203, Johnny?
Yeah, man, he's climbing, but the more like this is not the board I'm looking at, but I'm going to take DeJon Striblin here. Like I'm just, 33rd overall pick. The more the hype comes out that people had him as the top wide receiver on their board. I don't know if you saw that report. Yeah. I don't know if I'm believing all that, but again, we just start looking at draft capital, and it's a great landing spot, and he's going to get an opportunity. And this feels like the price is right around here.
And by the way, I don't disagree with that. We have to start respecting draft capital here. Let me throw you a curveball here, and I'm on my second beer, so maybe this is why. I'm going to go Emmett Johnson. I'm going to go Emmett Johnson here. And the reason is this. I do believe that this guy does not necessarily do anything to an elite level. I think everybody would agree with me on that. But he does everything at like a solid to good level. And solid to good is much better than Kansas City has had it in their backfield for several years, right? Kenneth Walker, no stranger to the trainer's room. So you could get a couple of windows here in his rookie year, Emmett Johnson, as being the guy in Kansas City. And maybe it's even more. Maybe he has a role right away from the get-go. Again, I really, it's hard for me to poke holes in any of these picks. So I'm going to take Emmett Johnson here and see what happens right away. And maybe he helps me win a couple of games in my dynasty league.
Yeah, give me Mike Washington Jr. next, just that handcuff upside. There's nobody else in that running back room. I think people argued he could be the RB3 in this class, all that. So this is about right? He's a pure handcuff, but there's a lot of contingent upside there.
I'm going to go Katron Allen with my next pick here ahead of Nick Singleton. And this is more of a commentary on what I believe the Commanders' backfield is, and that there is a possibility for this guy to shine right away. So it's kind of similar reasons why I'm taking Emmett Johnson here. I don't think Katron Allen is as talented as Emmett Johnson, but I do think that the path to success and fantasy startability is easier with Katron Allen here. I'm investing a mid-second round pick. Let's go, Allen.
Yeah,
go 7 for you, Johnny.
You're smashing this draft. You should do a graphic and show how bad you dog walked me after this. I'm going to take Nick Singleton here. Yeah, my concerns, but there is that path to potentially, a couple injuries away from a meaningful role, and that's what I start to look at when everything else is uninspiring.
Let's go upside here with this next pick, and maybe this is a mistake because he's teammates with Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan, but it's a guy I liked in the pre-draft process. I like his future in the league. A guy that I think can be a real baller and win at every level in the NFL is Ted Hurst, and I'm getting him at the 208 here. Probably a guy I don't count on much in 2026 unless injuries happen, and this guy can step in, put him in the slot, put him in the outside. He's catching passes from Baker Mayfield. There's a lot to like about Ted Hurst here at the 208. Tell us what there's a lot to like about at the 209 for your pick here.
I'm going Eli Raridon. He is my tight end 3 in this class. I think he's got a good landing spot in the Patriots. They play a lot of 12 personnel now, but I also think he'll be the heir apparent to Hunter Henry. Was the second recruit in his high school class. He's a solid athlete, and I think he'll be a good NFL player.
Far be it for me to do this, but the last two picks are going to be picks I don't like, but I feel like I have to do it. I'm going to lead things off with Zachariah Branch.
Yeah.
Because I know you're not taking him, and I probably should take him. People are going to take him at the end of the second round on a whim just to see what happens with how his NFL career takes off. Certainly there are pieces there of his game that we really like, and maybe he can develop other pieces of it. 210, what the hell? Let's see what happens. Zachariah Branch, your final pick here at 211.
Doing cleanup duty on these tight ends, I'll take Oscar Delp. I think he's got a solid landing spot, decent draft capital, and tied to an offense that we like long-term, right? So I mentioned Eli Reardon was the number 2 recruit in his tight end class. That was behind Oscar Delp.
Yeah.
So these guys are both really good tight end recruits coming out of high school. Good programs they played at. They can block, they can catch.
I like Delp quite a bit. I like his future in New Orleans. And I thought you were going to take Max Clare. So I was ready to take Oscar Delp at the 212. You take Delp at the 211. I'll take Clare at the 212. Sean McVay loves collecting his tight ends here.
Like Infinity Stones.
Yeah, Infinity Stones, exactly. So we're going to take the Space Stone here with Max Clare to go with the Time Stone in Terrence Ferguson, who we took last year. I envision a Rams offense leading the way for these 2 tight end sets going forward.
3 tight end sets, too. 13 personnel.
Parkinson and Higbee. Maybe there'll be a 4 tight end set. Mother of God, the 4 personnel with all 4 of these guys out there with Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams. I don't know how it's going to go. So Max Clare rounds it up for me tonight, and that rounds up our draft tonight. Real quick, this is how we went from the 101 to the 212. Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Jadarian Price, KC Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., Eli Stowers, Kenyon Sadiq, and then Denzel Boston, Jonah Coleman, and Chris Bell round out the first round. Second round featured Jeremy Bernard, Antonio Williams, DeJon Stribling, Emmett Johnson, Mike Washington Jr., and Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Ted Hurst, Eli Raridan, Zachariah Branch, Oscar Delp, and Max Clare. Will that be your FFPC rookie draft when you lead things off on Saturday? For those of you viewers watching who are getting ready for that, maybe, maybe not, probably not, because every draft is different, but we gave you a little blueprint. The blueprint for fantasy success can be found at Fantasy Picasso on the X. Tell everybody one more time about everything you're doing with the podcast and everything you're doing for Player Profiler right now, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks again, Eric, for having me on. You're a true professional, man. You do great work. On X at Fantasy Picasso, like you said a few times, that's the biggest thing you can do. Follow me on X. I try and post a lot of insightful, fun, challenging content on there. And then, yeah, we have a Player Profiler podcast and then a YouTube page. Follow the main Player Profiler YouTube page and check out Dynasty Deep Dive. Got a new show coming out, as Eric alluded to, with Ian Harditz on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So should be another data point for you guys for your Dynasty drafts.
Yeah, for those of you playing FFPC Superflex, which I know is a ton of you, check that out with Ian and Johnny coming up Saturday morning, right before your drafts kick off. Last data point that you can put in before you draft the future of your Dynasty team. Johnny, we will continue to follow you at Fantasy Picasso. Thank you so much for popping on tonight. Really appreciate it. Be good, and let's do this again sometime soon.
Yes, sir.
That is Jonny Tooma at Fantasy Picasso from Player Profiler. Want to remind you, the Best Ball Tournament and Superflex Best Ball Tournament live at myffpc.com. $400,000 and $100,000 grand prizes are at stake. The Big Gorilla, $1 million grand prize, a $350 entry. The 7 Bananas and Early Rampage tournaments going on right now at myffpc.com. Dynasty startups, Empire Dynasty startups, starting at $100 and going up to $5,000, all at myffpc.com. Chop leagues, if you want to play in the guillotine style format that the FFPC just launched this year, $35 is where it starts there. And you can win your way into the Big Gorilla, the main event, or just winning some cash. myffpc.com, or just download the app, which is free in the App Store and Google Play. FFPC app is free, and you can register for leagues, deposit cash, draft leagues, manage leagues, put in your waiver bids, set your lineups, all on the FFPC app. Thanks to Jonny Tooma. We will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern time next Thursday with Fantasy Points. Steve O'Rourke, the film analyst there, will join us. We'll talk about some rookies. We'll talk about some veterans as well as we slip into redraft season. Also, I want to let you know that the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour did not air last night because we were airing tomorrow night, Friday night, an hour earlier, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We are covering the Genesis and Revelations drafts live. Plenty of room in both of those drafts. So if you want to register, go to myffpc.com, click on the classic drafts drop down, and just do a Control F on Genesis or Revelations, whichever one you want to sign up for. And we'll cover your draft live on YouTube and on X and on Facebook. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have you come on the show too if you want. And make a couple of picks on air. So check that out, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. For Jonny Tooma, my name is Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access. We will talk with you again with Steve O'Rourke next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and crush those FFPC rookie